Good evening, everyone. And we are recording this and we are broadcasting this, but given a number of managerial and health issues, we were not able to get out a announcement that it would be live broadcast in time. So some of you may be watching this in an archive format, but welcome and Happy New Year to all. We will start the evening with the chant of Great Blazing Bliss in English on the first page of our recitation book. What, dear?
I haven't done that for a while. Say something about what that is. Can you say something about it?
This is a expression of by Mipam Rinpoche of a desire to empower all the forces in the universe to magnetize the beneficial practice that we're about to undertake. So it invokes a lot of beings who are embodiments of significant energy to really empower the capacity, the energy of our practice. So we'll start. Om Ahum Shri. Great bliss, blazing power, palace where wisdom knows no bliss and emptiness. Blissful lotus, ones with no wanting. Vajra sun, great glory shines from there. True form Amitabha Dorje Lokesh, Lord compassion, passionate. Lotus, Lord Master of world and peace, power Heruka outshines all things. Sanwa Yeshe Bendra Varahi, Demchotis Arkin great bliss treasure. Manesimshkin Marus all mudras, high-low dancing in bliss emptiness. Power wielding Dak and Daki host, you know seen and empty as the same. You dance your Vajra form, shakes three worlds, you laugh and ceaseless speech rests three realms. Red light rays suffuse all worlds in peace, stir and gather world peace essences. Grant the 2 feet our supreme desire, Vajra passion of your own heart mind. With great Vajra hooks and lassos you bind to great bliss all you know and see. Dance play in the endless magic net like sesame pods burst open with 3 roots power, God host vast array. Bless and grant as with respect I pray. For unhindered city power in all feats high and low that I desire. And then we orient to the sources of our protection and guidance and ultimate realization in refuge, which we will be teaching about on Saturday from 11 to 1 on page 12. In 3 real jewels, 3 root bliss-filled ones, channels, winds, bright orbs, this Bodhi mind, essence, nature, moving, love, mandal, until full Bodhi I seek refuge. Gunjoksum nerde shek zawasum, zalung tigle rang shin jang jubsem, no orang shin tuk cheng ying la, jang jub yingbo pardu kyap suchi. In 3 real jewels, 3 root bliss-filled ones, channels, winds, bright orbs, this Bodhi mind, essence, nature, moving, love, mandal, until full Bodhi I seek refuge. Olam like moons in water, sights deceive us. We ever roam bound in cyclic chains, so all may rest in their clear mind sphere. I raise Bodhi through four boundless states. Ho anatso nangwa chune dzunregi, korwa lugu gyundu kyambe do, rang rika sa ying sung el so cheer, tse me shi ngang ne semge do. Ho, like moons in water, sights deceive us. We ever roam bound in cyclic chains, so all may rest in their clear mind sphere. I raise Bodhi through four boundless states. Kyabda Gyalwa Nanda Gyerme Be Gadin Sumden Tinchen Lama Je Rigzin Gyerme Tupden Gatsola Sola Depso Nyam Lentar Chin Shog. So during this Losar period, we teach very fundamental, very profound, very important practices, and we thought we would start with the whole issue of having a daily practice, and a very, very fundamental but very, very significant, profound, and important practice for all of us to have some familiarity with, and that is the cultivation of attention. And what I'm saying here is going to be, to a large extent, based on Ken MacLeod's Wake Up Your Life, the section on cultivating attention. This is based on very, very traditional Buddhist teachings, but he has a way of getting to the pith and really understanding how to put things together in a very, very effective manner. Most of us are drawn to practice because something, in a way, isn't working in our life. We want something more, we want something deeper, we want a deeper relationship with ourselves, or we would like to come out of patterns that don't work for us. And one way to describe the kinds of patterns that we're involved in is that we're involved in a whole bunch of habits and ways of responding to things that most of us, from the framework of psychotherapy, probably come to due to decisions we made when we were younger. We all learned how to survive life when we were younger, and we developed patterns that worked for us as children. Buddhism would say we work with patterns that we probably develop not only in this life but over many, many lives. These are not really contradictory. They really dovetail fairly well. But at some point in our lives, we come to understand that our pattern behaviors are not optimal. We might be in a relationship and we may either be a person who is controlling our partner or has been controlled by our partner, and whether it be the active pole of that kind of control or the passive pole of being controlled, being in a fixated position may not work and might lead to a crisis. We might be an individual who tends to overwork, and we probably all have heard of people like this, and some of us may have experienced it ourselves. We work and work and work until we have anxiety attacks or panic attacks. Our stomach gives out, we get colitis, we get whatever. And all of a sudden we want to look at what the heck have we been doing with ourselves. We might have a kind of mañana attitude towards life. We ignore our bills, we ignore the IRS letters, and then all of a sudden we're $40,000 in debt because we have these IRS failed payments and they're garnishing our wages, and while it might even sound a little extreme, it sort of comes down like that. And some of us may have experienced that. We might have learned to use chemicals to alter our mood and take care of everything. So whatever's happening, we resort to, whether it be alcohol, prescription drugs, or non-prescription medications. And at some point, it just may not work. We really feel like there's got to be more to life than this sort of sense that we're in the same movie, the characters may change, the location may change, but gosh, it just seems like the same plot line is occurring over and over and over again. And so one way to understand the process of change is to understand the role of attention in change. And this is something that MacLeod really points out very, very well. When we're absorbed in patterns, we tend to sort of just slide into behaviors and sort of go along with automatic reactivity that is very, very predictable. So someone else gets attention at the table when there's a conversation, and we, as a matter of habit, shut down. We start feeling like, well, I'm not as important as everybody else. I'm feeling this sunken feeling. I'm not going to say anything. Nobody loves me. We go home, we eat the worms. And that may be our pattern, or we're the person who, I was out with people tonight and I was shining and I showed off and everybody listened to me and aren't I great? And, I don't really know that much about other people. They always know about me and I don't really feel that connected. I wonder what that's about. We are just falling into patterns of behavior that are not, in a way, really chosen. They just occur, and we fall into that unconsciously. And so a process of bringing attention into these kinds of habitual patterns is ultimately a kind of destructive work. We're going to be looking at giving up patterns that have defined us, that do define us, and moving into a certain kind of unknown territory. And it's actually the case that real, whether it be psychological and or spiritual work, there is going to be some dismantling that's involved and maybe some discomfort. The key ingredient in starting this whole process of dismantling habitual patterns is the ability to develop attention in the face of our habits. It's very, very easy to say, but very, very hard to operationalize. The capacity to actually be aware of the fact that we're in a habitual, routinized pattern. And all of us know we sometimes get upset, we get anxious, we get angry, we get upset with people on the highway, we get upset with our friends or our beloveds or our parents. And sometimes we say our buttons get pressed, and before we know it, we're screaming and hollering and feeling like the world is coming to an end and we wish things were different. And we're saying things we know are not particularly productive. We've probably said things like this before. We feel out of control. And there may be actually almost no observation of what we're doing. We're just sort of behaving, and we're sort of in a habitual pattern. If we can bring attention into this whole process, it offers a lot of possibilities of doing things differently. The core of attention is ultimately our own innermost original mind. We are capable of developing attention because there is some inner nature of knowingness that all human beings have, but have not discriminated. It is our habitual patterns that really obstruct our innermost knowingness. And it's the capacity to actually know what's going on in a very, very clear and attentive manner that offers a path to freedom. So when we consider attention, we can talk about passive attention and active attention. And passive attention occurs when an experience sucks us in. Oh, this movie is just so absorbing. My thoughts are so absorbing. I'm on a roll here. Ann and I like to say sometimes we get into deep thoughts. So we're at our computers and one of us comes over and you live with somebody long enough, you get shorthand, so we just say DT, which is deep thought. It just means I'm a goner, leave me alone. I don't want to be disturbed, but it's sort of, I won't speak for her, but sometimes when we're in DT, it's like the train of thoughts is driving us. It's not we're in control. I don't know if others of you, aside from me, experience this, but we could call it sort of computer hypnosis. I suspect some of you feel this with Facebook in particular. I do it with maybe if I'm shopping for something and I want the best price, the best thing and the best price. So you start off, you're sort of aware of yourself, you're aware of everything else, and then it's like, I've got to find the best laptop computer for my office mate. So you start doing the research, and then it's like, I've got to find the parameters, and then it's like, we're getting really into it, and the outside world starts moving away, and the computer is becoming more and more significant, and then it's like the parameters, 6 or 8 gigabytes of memory, and then how much is it costing, and she wants a wireless mouse, and where can I get the best price? And the object just draws us completely in. And if you're aware of yourself and you're sort of thinking, I probably should get up and do X because I have to do it. I need to call a client, or I need to do something, or I've got to prepare some food. And you feel this like, I can't leave the computer. It's like Velcroed into my soul. I can't even actually think autonomous thoughts. That's passive attention at its best. You're gone. The object has taken complete control over our lives. It can happen with free association, it can happen with rumination, it can happen with worry, it can happen with plans. Anything that sort of we get lost in and don't feel we have a say-so is passive attention. Active attention is actually deciding to look at this page and at the same time be aware there's noises, there are flowers, but those things arise and cease, come into attention and leave attention, but I continue to focus on this page. And then when I want to take my attention away, I take it away. It's a very, very different kind of experience of vividness and clarity and intentionality. With active attention, our energy of engagement in what we're focused on is going to be higher, if we're successful, than the energy of what draws us away. So I'm trying to look at this piece of paper. If somebody drops something over by the shrine area, if my energy of attention is higher towards the shrine area, then I'm lost. I've got to figure out what that is. Did they break something? Oh, what are we going to do? And then I'm gone. But if I'm looking at this piece of paper and stuff's going on over there, okay, but I'm still on this piece of paper, that's secondary, then I've got active attention here. It involves volition, it's stable, and it's inclusive. I'm intending where my thoughts are going. I don't get lost. I'm aware of other things happening. I'm not like zoning out, but I'm not getting lost in those things. Now this is some of you have probably practiced a lot of different meditational systems, and there are a lot of subtleties in what is being said in this particular approach, which is very, very important. A lot of ways of teaching meditation might teach you really shut everything out. Don't have any awareness of some other things that are arising and ceasing. Here they're arising and ceasing, but you're maintaining, you're sort of tethered in a certain kind of very balanced way, and we're going to get to that very shortly. And when you can hold that, then you're not falling victim to reactivity. So one of the interesting issues in all of this is the issue of control. And a lot of people get drawn to meditation because they want to control their minds, and they want to get into sort of a power struggle with their mind. They would like the mind to be something like a light switch. I mean, we all, if truth be told, we're all like that. I mean, what's wrong with it? You know, our minds are and we're thinking, if only I had an on-off switch. You know, wouldn't that be great? When I'm worried, but just flip the switch and I have control, master of the universe. Well, would that it were possible, but it's not. I'm sorry. So, the art of meditation, and a lot of people stop meditating because they feel that they should have that, you know, once they sit down, immediately the mind should just be quiet. I'm meditating, and everybody talks about meditation as an act of quieting the mind, and my mind's not quiet, therefore I'm a bad meditator, I should give up. Well, actually, this is a frame which is seeing meditation as an act of attention, and the mind might become quiet, but it might not become quiet. It's whether the attention can be steady. Now, one of the things about this particular style of cultivating meditation and attention is that it is very, very much in line with the broader, large view of what we call the great perfection teachings or the great completeness teachings of Dzogchen, where ultimately we talk a lot about, you know, the mind is like the sky and clouds come or clouds don't come, but there's a spaciousness that we're in, and things can arise or cease, but we're not disturbed by those. And this method of cultivating attention is going to be very, very much in tune with and in line with the much deeper and much later teachings that really explicitly talk about how one cultivates that deeper kind of understanding. But this is a very, very excellent entree into that mode of understanding practice and working with the mind. So really cultivating attention is much like growing a plant. It's not like, it is not like when you get some package at Office Depot for the desk that you take to your office and says, you know, needs some assembly. So you get a screwdriver and there's this little set of instructions, you know, step 1, you do this, step 2, you do this, step 5, you've got a desk. It's much more like a plant where we do certain things. We plant a seed, we pour some water, we add some fertilizer, and then we pray. And then we hang back. I mean, we do what we can do, but then we rest. And this whole process that we're describing here is going to be a process of placement and resting. And those of you who've come here somewhat regularly know that we talk about the teachings of a very, very great yogini named Majik Laptun, who's portrayed over there in the white. She's a great yogini, and she summarized the teachings on Dzogchen as sort of tighten with tightness and tighten with tightness, loosen with looseness. It's the essence of the view, which is quite puzzling. However, when you start seeing how practice is negotiated, and even this practice of attention has within it tightening with tightness and loosen with looseness, and this carries through all of our practices, we begin to see that we can start being in resonance with the view of the deep view of Dzogchen very early on. So in terms of the body, you want to be in a sort of natural state, which is naturally restful and alert. Ideally, your back is erect, your chin is a little bit tucked, your neck is high, your shoulders square. If you're sitting on the floor, you can be in some either cross-legged or lotus or half lotus. If you're sitting in a chair, you can be sitting at least erect. You wouldn't be sitting with your legs crossed. You wouldn't be slouching. You wouldn't be like this, meditating. And we just have kind of erect posture. Some people might need a back support. Other people might feel it's okay without a back support. And you can see what works for you that way. We are basically going to observe the breath, just the process of breathing in and out. We're not changing the breath whatsoever. If it feels like somehow the body and the breath are in some kind of opposition or tension with one another, we just keep coming back to the natural restfulness of the being with the breath. And then with respect to what we do with our mind, we place our attention on the breath and follow the rhythm with just a slightest more emphasis on the exhalation, which doesn't mean we're actually lengthening the exhalation or holding the exhalation. We're just a little bit more aware of the exhalation. And by placing our attention, we're cutting through the passive attention, we're creating active attention. And once the attention is on the breath, we let it rest on the breath. So there is a placing, but then there's a being. There's a tightening with tightness and a loosening with looseness. So we place, that takes some effort, but then we're just sort of being aware of the breath. We're with the breathing. We're clear, we're stable, we're neutral. There may be thoughts arise, there might be feelings arise, there might be noises arise. We're staying with the breath. Then very, very naturally, active attention becomes passive attention. Instead of being actually aware of the breath in an active, volitional way, we lose ourselves. We lose ourselves to the thoughts, we lose ourselves to the noise, we lose ourselves to the plan, we have some memory, we have some poignant recollection of somebody we knew in high school and wondering what could happen to them. We bring the attention back. When we recognize, it's very, very interesting to contemplate the whole process of distraction, because we get distracted in a way that we're not aware of. You can't help becoming distracted. The mind is going to do it. At a certain point, you will become undistracted. And if truth be told, you don't control that either. Now, when you become undistracted, you can, and it's sort of helpful to just label that you have been distracted with thinking, or distraction, just a very gentle note, and bring your attention back. And with the recollection that you have been distracted, breathe out, and then return your attention and rest with the breath. It could be very, very tempting to be very judgmental. That's going to help nothing whatsoever, and the best way to deal with judgmentalness is, again, just to a certain point you may notice you're being judgmental. So thinking, or distraction, and bring your attention back to the breath. You brought your attention back to the breath, rest your attention on the breath. It's very, very important that this is not concentrating tightly, holding the breath. concentrate tightly, you're going to become more distracted, more tense, and more frustrated. So you're going to attend, rest, become distracted, recognize, identify with distracted, or thinking. Exhale, bring your attention back to the process of the breathing, and then rest with the process of the breathing. So the other thing that I would say for now is that when we start doing this, and we're going to keep our eyes just a little bit open. Why? There's a lot of discussion about eyes. But one of the things that we do in normal daily life is we walk around with our eyes open. And it's good to start understanding that you can have attention with your eyes open versus your eyes closed. They don't have to be open wide, and they're not focused. So it's just that your eyes are a little bit open. If you want, they can be turned downward, but you're not actually concentrating on looking through your eyes. They're just as your ears are open, your eyes are open, but you're really focused on the experience of the breathing and being with that, and then resting with it. When it's distracted, it's distracted. When you recognize, you note it, distracted. Exhale, place your attention on the breath, and then rest on the breath. We're going to do this in 5-minute segments. I'm going to set my little trusty droid. It will ring every 5 minutes. We will do about a half hour of this. And at the 5 minutes, just sort of loosen up for maybe 5 seconds, and then return. Why? Because when we first start, it's actually hard to maintain a continuity of attention. And you might notice yourself falling asleep or me falling asleep. It just is, once we start focusing, we tend to quiet down and we might become very, very heavy and dull. One of the ways to counteract that is to have short sessions called tune in Tibetan, short tune. Before we start, I just want to see if there's any questions about what we're doing. Anybody have any questions about what I just said? It's just we're going to observe the breathing. We're going to rest with the breathing. There will be distractions. We will recognize them. We don't know when. We don't know how long. Doesn't matter. Once we recognize them, we just distracted. Exhale. Bring our attention back. Rest with the breath. Rest with the flowing of the breath in and out, the sensation of the breath coming in and out. Questions? What we're doing? Mic, please. It needs to be pressed on.
So, is this a mindfulness or a concentration meditation, or is it neither? I just noticed I want to kind of catalogue it. It seems to be drawing or striding the boundary between the both.
Whoever said those were different?
Buddhism.
Oh, really?
Well, there are concentration and mindfulness meditations in the Pali Canon. I mean, they're differentiated, aren't they?
Are they?
As far as I know. Am I wrong? I don't know.
Mindfulness is always a component of concentration. Concentration is always an aspect of mindfulness.
So they're both, it's both.
There are practices that get labeled as mindfulness practices, and there are more focused practices that become concentrative. The way we're doing this, how should I say this? You could be on a path where one road goes to Dallas and one road goes to New Orleans, but first you're on the path that goes to that Y in the road. What we're talking about right now is before the Y in the road. There might be things you would do that would be more oriented towards concentration. There might be things you would do that would be more oriented towards different kinds of mindfulness practice. This practice is before specializing and saying this is a concentration practice that would lead to really a deep state of single-pointed focus, or this is a mindfulness practice that would lead to an awareness of various qualities of phenomena. This is, in a way, before that split, and it's got characteristics of both, and it's a little bit different from some. You might not see this particular mode of practice described in the Pali suttas, particularly this particular mode. This is a little bit unique to a kind of Tibetan style of practice.
Yeah, I guess it was more of a kind of intellectual, analytic question. I was thinking about sometimes when they describe Zazen, they say it collapses the categories of mindfulness and concentration, and it was kind of reminding me of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering.
Well, I hope my answer was...
It was really helpful, thank you.
Yeah, here's another question.
When I meditate, sometimes I find my body moving, and I want to know if is that distraction, where that comes from, or should I stop that movement, or I just find my body rocking.
Rocking?
I don't know if it's outside or if it's just an inner feeling of movement.
Yeah.
And my question is if I should stop it or just allow it as part of the process, or...
You might be curious, and you might do both. It is the case that some people have currents of energy that move when they start quieting down and calming down, and there are movements. And you can sit with that and just let that be. That's okay. You could also see what would happen if you were to not let that occur. You might just be curious. I would just be open-minded and see how it affects you. Most of all. But also, most of all, keep the attention on the breathing. Anything else? Okay. Do you all know what to do? We're going to do it in 5 minutes. Oh, Emily came in. So, what we're doing... We are going to sit meditatively with our eyes open a little bit, not focused, just they're open, but we're really not seeing so much, it's just that they're open, so we're aware. We will be placing our mind on the breath, and then just letting the breathing occur. Be a little bit more attentive to the out-breath, but that doesn't mean alter it or anything, just be with it. Any kinds of, and then when you've placed the mind on the coming and going of the breath, then just rest with that, being aware of the breathing. And then there will be distractions. And so when the distractions occur, when it occurs that you recognize the distraction, just note it as distraction. Exhale, replace your mind on the breath, and then rest with the breath. So the major features of this is we're placing and resting, allowing the distractions to occur. When they're recognized, we identify, we exhale, we replace, we re-rest, and then the whole process starts again. Okay? We're going to do it in 5-minute segments, so 5 minutes may be a little bit long, but let's see if we can at least maintain freshness for that. And we'll do about half hour of this. What? Oh, that just got altered. We will do 20 minutes worth. Thank you. So just take a few seconds break. Stretch if you need to. And then restart. Take a break for a few seconds. And we'll restart. take a brief break for a few seconds. And in this meditation, just a reminder, we're observing the breathing, we're placing the mind on the breath, we're resting. If there are thoughts or feelings or sounds or things come to our visual field, and we can continue maintaining our attention on the breath, it's fine. We're just maintaining the attention, resting on the breath. If we get fully distracted, when we recognize that, we bring it back, attend to the breath, and rest on the breath. Just rest in the natural flow of the breath. But just because there's a thought that occurs or a sound, you don't have to label that a distraction if you're with your breathing. Just if you fully get dragged away. Okay, we can restart. And just now rest with attention. Just relax for about a minute and just see how you are. And just without really efforting at anything, just be with yourself and sense into yourself. Allow the effects of practicing attention for 20 minutes settle in and just see how that is. No judgment, just curiosity. Okay. Are there any questions or comments or observations? Back at Satya as something.
When you referred to the aspect of attention not being totally in our control, and the aspect of losing attention not being in our control, could you speak more to that, please?
You may be able to decide that you're cultivating attention, but you won't be able to decide that you can sustain your attention in an unbroken manner for 5 minutes. You can't do that. You can create a context, you can have an intention to place your mind on your breathing, you can rest with your breath, and then it is out of your control as to when you'll become distracted and how you'll be distracted for how long. It's also out of your control as to when you'll recognize that you were distracted and sort of come out of it. So that's where that control, absence of control occurs.
I find that comforting.
Well, in a way it's comforting because it takes a burden off of you, and in another way it says we really do need to enter into an ongoing, regular practice to allow this to mature in its own kind of way. And really, for daily practice, whether one could do 10 or 20 minutes of this, it would have very, very profound impact. Just this would be way, way significant if one could do this regularly.
Way.
Yes, Robert.
Thank you for taking the question. Is it typical for the time slots to sort of lengthen and shorten in feeling?
There can be all sorts of time distortions when we meditate. Sometimes it will feel like 5 minutes is like 5 hours, and sometimes it will feel like 5 minutes is 5 seconds. Usually when things are going more poorly, time elongates, and when things are going well, it tends to contract. So when we're in very, very peaceful or rich states, time, the subjective sense may be that hardly any time passed at all, whereas a lot of time may have passed. But when we're out of sorts, it can be torture and just feel like it's going on forever, and it can be just 5 minutes. Yeah, so there can be a lot of time distortions.
Yeah, because I noticed for myself anyway, like the first session was very long. The last session was very long as well, but the ones in between, they were, pretty compressed and very quick.
Well, and you can be assured it was pretty much the same on the clock.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Perception.
But it's important to notice that. Any other questions or observations? Yes. Kath.
What about the physical sensations? Maybe you said something about that before I came in, but I'm talking about the pain.
Pain? Yeah.
And the need to cough, or the need to scratch, or are these similar distractions in a way?
You need to sort of play each of those by ear. Ideally, you want to be in a posture that minimizes pain, that supports you as you know your body works. Scratches, that can be an interesting experiment. Can you maintain your focus on your breathing even though there's some impulse? Coughing, most people can't really ultimately control that. This is not meant to be an endurance contest, but it is. There's some balance between what does the body absolutely need to do, something like cough, and then there are sort of minor irritations and minor movements, and can we just try to not do those as by way of curiosity. But you don't have to be rigid. Most of all, you should be comfortable. If you're not comfortable, you won't meditate. Anyone else a question or observation? One more up front.
Can you say a word on the relationship between the awareness and the reactivity? Like, is the awareness, does it kind of phenomenologically dissolve the, like, is the reactivity, what is the reactivity like congealed awareness? Like, can you just speak on the relationship between the two?
Probably, ultimately, everything is congealed awareness, but practically speaking, to the extent that your awareness is settled, clear, and deep, you may be able to sit through and not be distressed, disturbed by a variety of reactivities. It, in a way, depends on just the clarity and depth of the awareness that you've got.
I guess, it was just kind of interesting because just before I came, something happened and I got really triggered in a really intense pattern of reactivity for me. So when I was come to sit down, it was really kind of going. And then I guess what I experienced was it was almost like, say, if the reactivity was like this, that the awareness was just I experienced it as a kind of loosening, so it was kind of, it would just seem like a less intense narrative and a less intense contraction. That's just how I experienced it in the session, and I was just wondering the kind of mechanics of it.
Well, I think it's something that you would be very worth, continual observation in your own experience as just to how there are, I think, a fair number of complicated relationships between, let's say, clear attention and reactivity. Sometimes we might find that our clear attention can just allow the reactivity to dissolve really very, very easily, or it might modulate it or moderate it, as you described. And it can also happen that we may have a lot of clear attention, and somewhat shortly thereafter we might find that we're extremely highly reactive. So there are a lot of different...
Sadly so.
a lot of different causes and conditions and relationships between attention and reactivity.
Thanks. It's a big question, I know, I just wanted to...
Yeah. So we're already over time, so I don't want to be over time. We will do our dedications of merit starting on page 22 in English. By this good may I swiftly once become a great guru. lead all beings, everyone, to reach to that very ground. Long life for His Holiness the Dalai Lama on page 25. In a pure land ringed by snow mountain, source of bliss and benefit for all, powerful Denzin Gyatso Chenrezi, his feet please stay hundreds of years, vast space with your activities. Long life prayer for Adzon Pela Rinpoche. Om Swasti, flawless refuge sources, give blessings, teacher, protector, kind Dharma Lord, Rame Tupten Gyatso, wondrous good, lotus feet, ever deeds everywhere. And starting with Namo Guru and then moving to the top of page 27 in English. Namo Guru, glorious, wise, K, bright tune, and kind song. Now that your work here has subsided, please think of our pains and suffering. We pray you quickly take form again. Om Swasti, Anne and Harvey, like the waxing moon, may your life and merit flourish, grow through the threefold skillful pundits' deeds. Live long benefiting all you meet by the true power of two Vajra truth, three jewels, three roots, Buddha's compassion, faithful Sangha and aspiration. May this prayer be realized at once. And we'll do the prayer for Dawn Mountain, page 32. May there be a great fine new temple, great seat for all high practice learning, which having spread in all directions, male and female yogis everywhere, practice and further the teachings there. And the book is where? Why don't you read the names, dear, since I did
So this is the tradition of dedicating our practice to the benefit of all beings. As we dedicate it to the long lives of our teachers, and really for everyone, everywhere, and specifically for people that we're connected with today.
Let's start there. It's not demarcated for today.
Here, let's do
Oh, okay.
Jennifer P., Nam, Jenny Piers, David's mother in Bardo, Ann Glegg, Mrs. Ann Glegg, Amanda Glegg, Bill Wong? Bill? There's a Bill, but there's a name before that. B. Okay, for that person. Michael, Lola's mom in the Bardo, Claire for a job, Fernanda Lopez for healing, Kiki, Anna, Ophelius, Heinze, Teresita, Martha, Gerardo, Yongyan Mai, Amy Jia, Haley Mosher for a job, Tina Borja, Rosa Glenn Riley, family, Emily for a job, Matt for a job, John, Shirley, Arlene, Yolanda, Jen, and Andreas Reinhardt.
It's Bethany.
Bethany,
So we'll do one what was it? Another name? Okay.
There. Of course, absolutely.
Sure. We'll do one concluding just dedicating for all in this community, the state, the country, the planet. 6:30, talking about cultivating attention again. Saturday, 11 to 1 on bodhicitta and on refuge in bodhicitta.
And also a kind of overview of the path as a whole, in an abbreviated way.
And then Monday and Tuesday will be Vajrasattva at 6:30. And then on Wednesday and Thursday will be Tara teachings. And then next weekend, Friday through Sunday, there'll be a practice of Tara retreat. Happy New Year. Happy to see all of you. Thank you so much for coming.